mama, trying to figure out how to be with Jesus and your kids at the same time? Watch this video to learn about Christian community and kids. Hey soul sister, if you desire to experience the divine all the time, subscribe to my channel, ring the little church bell, and you'll be notified every time I post a new video. If you watched my last video about how to practice fellowship or community as a spiritual discipline, you may have noticed that all of my examples excluded the kids. I'm sure you're familiar with the struggle between nap schedules and illnesses and just the general overwhelm of having to plan it all out. It's really hard to make play dates and schedule time doing things with your kids. And then if you do manage to get out the door with all of your kids in tow, if you and the other woman have anywhere between 2 and 10 kids between you, you start anywhere from 20 to 40 conversations and never finish a single one. Plus, personally, I'm always a little bit afraid of offending another mom, or honestly of them or their kids doing something that I don't want my kids being exposed to yet. Nowadays, between vaccination, formula or breast milk, sexuality, there are so many places where you can misspeak or offend someone else. Sometimes I feel like the risk just outweighs the rewards, and that's with other Christian moms. It's just I get nervous. But when I look at scripture, I see that it says they, meaning the yet to believe world, will know that we are Christians by our love. So that means two things. First off, we have to love each other. That means we have to know each other so intimately that someone who doesn't know Jesus looks at that and sees something supernatural or like at least weird. And two, we have to love one another in front of those who don't know him yet. That means we need to fellowship with believers and those who have yet to believe. There are multiple ways to do this, but like every other discipline, it takes intentionality. So this is how I plan to teach my kids about fellowship or Christian community as a spiritual discipline, by being hospitable. In our home, where they feel safe, I want to invite people in who think and feel and behave differently than us. And I don't want to shelter them from everything. I want to invite people over who think differently than us in our home. I want them to know that we all struggle with sin, and I want them to see and hear other Christians talking about that openly. I want them to grow up knowing and seeing that repentance is a Christian fruit and it's not something that's shameful. I want them to see our friends, Christian and non, question the faith, question the Bible, question God. I want them to see them and us wrestle with those questions. And I want them to see us stay in community with people who question God and question these things. I want them to hear the struggles of other people and see us love them through it so that they know that when they are older and they have struggles of their own, we're gonna love them through it the same. I want them to see us get hot-headed with people and be dumb in how we handle situations, and see us ask people for forgiveness and a redo and you know, the opportunity to handle it like Jesus would instead. I want them to see us serving and sacrificing and honoring everyone, like it says in 1 Peter. I want them to see us as we have opportunity working for the good of everyone, like it says in Galatians. There are some things that have practically helped me make moves towards this sort of radical, hospitable lifestyle. The first is setting aside one night a week to host people in our home. Now we've been less consistent with this than I was hoping this month while I'm practicing Christian community as a spiritual discipline, focusing on that in the month of December. But because we've been sick and it's been the holidays, and I thought it'd be easier because it's like the holidays and everyone's hosting stuff, but it's proven to be more difficult. Nevertheless, that's been one helpful thing, is setting aside a night of the week. For us, it's Fridays, where I just try to cook twice as much food so that it's an open invitation. We can invite people over on Friday, and I'm already prepared to serve extra people than just who's in our family. And second, I actually kind of blended one and two together, but the second thing is doubling my recipes. So for this, I use a meal planning app called Real Plans. It's really helpful because we have a lot of food restrictions, and a lot of our friends have allergies and food restrictions. And so it's helpful to just type in what foods we want to avoid, and then I can just tally up on the number of servings, and it multiplies everything for me. So doubling our recipes 1 day a week is also a tip that's been helpful for me. The household that loves things too much and people too little will never be good at hospitality. And that's a quote by Rosaria Butterfield in a book called The Gospel Comes with a House Key that really rocked my world. It was really, really great, really challenged me in this area. It was a blessing to me. And that leads me into the third point, which is simplicity. Simplicity is a key to hospitality. I think it's, as she said, almost impossible to really be hospitable and live a lifestyle of hospitality with an overabundance of stuff. It just gets in the way, especially as a mom with little kids. Like, it is so overwhelming to have to pick up a million toys and a million clothes and have all these dishes and all these appliances. It's a lot. And the more we simplify our things, the easier it is for me to wrap my mind around having people in our home on a regular basis. Like right now we have house church in our house every Sunday. And when we were first married, that would have seemed like a nightmare, honestly. And especially when we had our first child, that would have seemed like a no-go. Sometimes I roll my eyes when I remember that I need to clean up before people come over, but honestly, it's not nearly as much. It's not taxing and it's not a burden like it would have been had we not simplified so many times, because it's a process. It's not a one and done. It's kind of an ongoing thing that you do, and it's really been a blessing, and it's made up literally it is figuratively making more space. Literally has made more space figuratively in my heart and in my mind for having people over on a regular basis. This is a tip that I got from another really good book about hospitality called The Simplest Way to Change the World. That was really good. And this is what you do is you just use the favorites list in your phone. Like if you have an iPhone and under contacts, you have a favorites list. It has always been my family, and right now it's still predominantly my immediate, my close relatives. But I've started adding people to the favorites list who I meet at church or at the library, moms and other families that I meet. And I started adding them to my favorites list because so often I'll be like, oh, I really want to reconnect with that person, but I'll find them on Facebook or I'll add them to my phone, but then I forget their name. And so keeping them in my favorites list kind of keeps them kind of in the front of my mind and somewhere that I see regularly, so that I can remember to invite people over for a meal or schedule a play date or something. I've also seen in the book they also wrote they do like an Excel sheet, but that just seems more daunting to me. I don't know. It makes it too formal for me. So this kind of gives me some structure, but it doesn't make it put pressure on me to remember to keep up with an Excel sheet. Finally, get the kids involved. There's so many things that they can do even starting at a really young age. They can pick the menu, they can invite over their friends, they can take jackets, they can set the table. There's all sorts of ideas. If you come up with something else, more creative ideas, please let me know, because I'm trying to figure out what all three of my kids can do. I have 1, 3, and 5-year-old, and almost 5. And but yeah, if you have additional ideas, please leave them below in the comments. I would love to hear more. Finally, some takeaways that I have for you guys is that hospitality shares what is. It's not entertaining. You don't have to get out the fine china. You don't have to set out a tablecloth or nice napkins or any of that. Sometimes it's fun for the holidays and whatnot. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I look forward to doing that when my kids are a little bit older. But that does not have to be That's not the definition of hospitality. You can host that way if you want to, if it's to your joy to do it that way, or you can get some red Solo cups, some paper plates, and some plasticware, and you can just share what there is. Make something simple, like some chicken and some rice, and maybe some veggies, whatever. Just share what you have. And you can also be hospitable if you and your kids don't have the space to entertain, or you're just not in a season where you're able to welcome people in your home on a regular basis. You and your children can bring a dish and be hospitable in someone else's home. So there's always a way to make any of the spiritual disciplines that God has given us work, to invite Jesus into them, to let it be an act of worship. You don't need a PhD. This is the ABCs of Christianity. Hospitality actually is one of the qualifications for an elder. And I say that and you're like, well, I'm not an elder's wife. But you know what? Honestly, the qualifications of an elder just are qualifications for a good Christian man, a good Christian family. It's not, shooting for the moon. It's just what we should all be striving for. And then that's why one of the qualifications is desiring the position of eldership. But hospitality is one of those qualifications. It's a part of who we are as Christians to open our home. We are ambassadors for Christ. So just like with an international ambassador, when their home represents that country, right? So our home represents God's kingdom. And when we open our door to people, Christians, believers, and those yet to believe, when we open our door, it's as if God is opening his door, right? So we are to extend the love and the generosity and just the welcoming atmosphere that God has extended to us. We're to extend that to other people. And our kids should see that. Our kids get to see that and partake in that. I think that's beautiful. I think nowadays there's a lot of intolerance, and there's a lot of wrong definitions of intolerance, just because we don't believe the same as everyone else, just because we believe in the Bible and we believe that in absolute truth, doesn't mean that we can't be loving and hospitable and respect and honor all people. And I think just the easiest way, honestly, and one of the most intimate and beautiful ways is to share a table with someone and share food and drinks and just enjoy one another's company. So much good conversation happens over food, right? Always has since the beginning of time. And I think always will. We see that we're going to feast together in heaven, right? So I think right now we can bless other people, we can bless our neighbors by laying out food for them and enjoying their company over that food. I think that's a really awesome way to show the gospel. Even if we're not sharing the gospel in word at that moment, we're sharing the gospel in deed. And I know that will open up opportunities for gospel conversations that then our kids can see, how we lead into that. And how often does that happen? How often do our kids get to witness us loving on people who think and feel differently than us? How often do our kids get to see us sharing the gospel or sharing God's love in a practical way? We feel so passionately about this community, fellowship, hospitality that Kingston and I, my husband and I, are shaping our missiology around it. In January, we're entering into a residency with a church in a different city called City on a Hill, a part of the Soma network of churches, so that we can learn how to do life and do church like this. We're going to be taught how to live in a way that's hospitable and loving and serving all people, so that a world that in many ways is rightly skeptical and cynical of the Christian church, of the institutionalized church, has the opportunity to have an actual encounter with Jesus. If that stirs your heart at all, my husband and I will be sharing our journey on our YouTube channel, Anchor and Abide. Feel free to go over there and subscribe. Now you know how to practice the spiritual discipline of Christian community with kids. This has been very timely for me this holiday season, and I hope it's been a blessing to you too. If you yourself need Christian community, I want to encourage you to watch my last video. Also, I have a Facebook group where I will be sharing devotions and encouragement. It's a private space where soul sisters can build each other up and provide support for other mamas. And if you like the video, please let me know by liking it below, subscribe and share it with other beautiful mamas, and comment below with radical hospitality if you found anything in this video helpful.